Greetings everyone, my name is Jonathan Bailey. I am from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. I am a copyright and plagiarism expert with 18 years of experience in the field, and if you think my expertise can help you out, please check out my consulting site at copybyte.com. Need a plagiarism analysis? Do you need to track some content on the internet? Let me know. Copybyte.com, copybyte.com. However, do please bear in mind, I am not a lawyer. Nothing in this video is legal advice. You shouldn't get your legal advice from YouTube. You silly viewer, you. And yes, as I have been remiss to do lately, please remember to like and subscribe. That's right, I'm doing videos like these weekly analyzing the latest plagiarism cases. If you think that's interesting, once again, like and subscribe, and I guess click the bell and do the other things too. I'm not really much of a YouTuber, apparently. Well, in this video, I wanted to look ahead a little bit. The Claudine Gay scandal, the Neri Oxman scandal, it's been, we'll just say, a wild few months for plagiarism. And it appears it's going to be a wild time for, well, months, maybe years to come, for reasons we'll get into in a little bit later in the video. So I wanted to take a moment and look ahead, see what's next for all the entities involved. That includes Claudine Gay, Neri Oxman, and academia in general. So this is going to be a video in 3 parts, and to start with, we're going to take a look at how it all started, namely with Harvard's now former president. Okay, first up, we're going to take a look at Claudine Gay. Now, Gay famously resigned her position on January 3rd. However, she did not leave the school fully. She has rejoined the faculty, though her exact position is unclear at this time. Now, previously, she was the Faculty of Arts and Sciences Dean, which was a very well compensated and very high-level position at the university. It's uncertain if she's returning to that position. They've just said she's returning to the faculty, not necessarily in what capacity. And I guess that's something we will find out in due time. This was a disappointment for many of Claudine Gay's biggest detractors. They wanted to see her fired outright. But that was never really going to be in the cards. See, the problem was she is a tenured professor at Harvard, and tenure complicates things. You can only fire a tenured professor for cause and after a very, very lengthy process. It can literally take months, even a year or more of hearings, tribunals, discussions, votes, and other activities, depending on the university, in order to dismiss a tenured professor. And the reason for this, the reason tenure exists, and once again, tenure is a divisive subject, and it does seem to be waning at most universities, but the reason it exists is so that once a professor reaches a certain level, a certain position, they're free to pursue whatever academic interest they want without fear of necessarily being retaliated against by the school. It's largely been seen as an important institution to allow freedom of research and freedom of intellectual exploration, but obviously, given how difficult it makes to get rid of sometimes problematic professors, it's also been quite controversial. Still, it seems highly unlikely to me that the school is going to go through this trouble to get rid of Claudine Gay. There's just not really a reason. Since she's no longer the president, she's not a lightning rod, and people seem to have already largely forgotten about her. We're already seeing the anti-Claudine Gay rhetoric die down a good deal just because she's not the president, so she's likely going to be able to slip back into her faculty position, and that'll be the end of it. She is in her mid-50s. She's not too far off from retirement, most likely, so yeah. It doesn't seem likely that the school is going to go through the effort, the expense, and the energy needed to dismiss her, especially given how much support they've shown for her through most of this process. And even if they did go through that process, dismissal isn't guaranteed. As I've said in the previous videos and on my website, the scandal is nuanced. Yes, there are issues in her work, but they're not nearly as serious as many would like you to believe. Academics have looked at these allegations and have found that while some definitely are problematic, most are not actual indications of plagiarism. So it's unlikely that if there was the full tribunal, if there was the full examination of her work, that it would end up resulting in her termination. So for Claudine Gay, what's next is probably returning as a member of the faculty in whatever capacity she and the school chooses, and finishing out her career there. For the next part about this, I want to talk about Neri Oxman, the wife of Bill Ackman, the hedge fund CEO owner, the billionaire, and of course, serious Claudine Gay critic. Oxman, as we all know, was accused of plagiarism in her dissertation, which she submitted at MIT as part of the process of receiving her doctorate. Now, with this, I want to cover it in 2 parts. First, I want to look at what theoretically could happen, and then I want to look at what is likely and practical here. Now, in theory, given the allegations, given that there does seem to be some issues with her dissertation, MIT could conduct a thorough investigation, look into it, convene the groups, go through the very lengthy process, and you'll find out quickly that this lengthy process thing is a recurring theme in this video. And after going through it, they could vote and move to revoke her degree. And at that point, she would lose her doctorate and no longer have that title. Now, part two, what's likely to happen? The answer is nothing. Nothing. And that's not me offering commentary on plagiarism or whether or not she plagiarized or how serious it is or anything. That's not commentary on the actual content of the allegation. That's commentary on what typically happens in these cases. Over the course of my 18 years that I've been doing this, I've run into about 6 cases in which I investigated a dissertation or a thesis, and the result of my investigation was submitted to the university. And it didn't matter how serious the plagiarism was. I've seen cases of plagiarism in a dissertation that go well beyond what we've seen with either Gay or Oxman. I mean, believe me when I say that it does get far worse than these cases. I've seen situations where the plagiarism is like 30, 40%. In fact, the very first case I did professionally involved one of these issues where I investigated a dissertation. The findings of my analysis were presented to the university, and the university didn't even look at it. It wasn't that my findings were dismissed, it's just they were not even examined. And the reason for this is simple. Revoking a degree is a lengthy, time-consuming, and resource-intensive process. It can take literal years to go through all of the tribunals, all of the appeals. You have to ensure that the accused has ample opportunity at every single stage of the process to have their case heard. And this requires the work of a body of people at the university, as well as involving outside experts, whether it's professors in the same field at other schools, whether it's outside experts such as myself. It involves a lot of moving parts. And like I said, it can take years. And for what? To revoke a degree? To address a matter of plagiarism that's years and years old? Schools just don't find that worthwhile. Now, what may be slightly more likely is if the outcry does get loud enough and if the concern is high enough. It may be that MIT does actually do some investigation, but what is more common is that they will work with the degree holder to find some way to correct or remediate the situation while allowing them to hold the degree. This can include resubmitting the dissertation with the elements fixed. This can include filing corrections if it was published in a journal, basically taking some kind of corrective action that does not require them to lose the degree. And to make matters less appealing for universities, in cases where they do opt to revoke a degree, the case often goes to a court of law. They get sued. And that is virtually a guarantee here. I think we can all recognize that. Now we're spending legal dollars. Now we're fighting in court. And now we're having all that expense. And for what end? Like I said, it's just to revoke a degree and address a plagiarism that happened years and years and years ago. These situations are embarrassing for the school. They are contentious and resource draining, and they create legal drama. So MIT most likely will simply ignore these findings and move on. That would fit the pattern with what I've seen over my career. But even if they do look into it, even if they do begin, analyzing it, the most likely outcome is some kind of settlement, if you will, with Oxman to try and keep her degree and prevent a legal battle down the road. And finally, for this video, our part 3, if you will, I want to take a look into the future of academia and specifically what universities and schools can expect moving forward, because there's definitely been some changes to the landscape, and I don't think things are going back to the way they were, at least not anytime soon. And proof of this is what happened last week. Then, a college watchdog group named the American Council of Trustees and Alumni, or ACTA, filed a formal complaint with the New England Commission of Higher Education, NECHE? I don't know how to say that, seeking an investigation into Harvard's handling of the Claudine Gay scandal. Now, the problem for Harvard is that accreditation with that organization is a literal requirement for them to receive federal funding. If they were to somehow lose that accreditation, they'd be missing out on federal student loans, other sources of federal funding, and that could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, that said, I don't see the loss of accreditation likely. A, it's Harvard. They're not going to lose their accreditation just because of one complaint. Also, and I know this not because of my professional life, but because my girlfriend actually worked for a university that was both seeking accreditation for new programs and dealing with challenges to accreditation elsewhere. And I can tell you that the process on both sides is, once again, long and arduous. And schools are given many chances to rectify an issue before accreditation is even seriously jeopardized. So the odds of this really leading to Harvard losing accreditation is functionally nil. But it is something for schools to watch out for. That's because for the first time in my career, issues of research and academic integrity are not simply issues of research and academic integrity. It used to be when we would talk about those subjects, it would be we were speaking to other academics. The general public didn't take an interest in it. Now that colleges have become more politicized, we are now seeing the public take more of an interest in these integrity issues. And a good example of this is, well, we return to Bill Ackman. He recently threatened to go back and do checks on every single member of MIT's faculty simply because of what happened to his wife. Now, I'm a little skeptical that's going to happen, and I won't go into all the details why, but basically, if he performed that check or crowdsourced that check or hired someone to do that check, as he said it, which is to go through the entire history of every faculty member at MIT, it would be by an order of magnitude the largest such plagiarism analysis I have ever heard of. And I don't say that lightly. I've got more details about it in the article, but basically, this would be an absolutely gobsmackingly huge job, considering that MIT has over 1,000 faculty members, and those faculty members do not have just one document apiece. So yeah, it would be all-consuming. That said, if anyone can do it, it's a billionaire willing to throw a lot of money at it. But still, I'm skeptical that without either A, doing a very shoddy job, or B, narrowing the focus significantly, I'm not convinced it's very practical, at least not over any kind of time frame that people would consider reasonable. But that issue of reasonable time frame is exactly what schools need to understand. Like I said, the public is now following these issues, for better or worse. And to be clear, I do think there is some better here. There are plenty of issues in academic and research integrity that are deeply flawed, that maybe need a little outside scrutiny and could really do with some cleaning up. I don't disagree with that. But the problem is these checks are not there to make academic or research integrity better. They're there to find that someone is a plagiarist and destroy their career or otherwise hurt them. And when you come at a plagiarism analysis from that perspective, it encourages sloppy results, and it encourages you to try to make hay and make a bigger deal out of minor issues than ever realistically would be. But with that public attention, universities are going to have to adjust the way they handle these types of scandals. Basically, the things I've been saying all along is the handling needs to be A, expedient, B, transparent, and C, independent. Now, the normal way of operating on these types of investigations is pretty much the exact opposite. They take a really long time, sometimes well over a year. They involve many layers of appeals and hearings and all that, but almost all of it done behind closed doors with zero transparency to the public. And it's rarely fully independent. They might bring in an outside professor, or they might bring in an expert like me in to help assist, but usually the decisions are being made by the school itself. That's probably going to have to change in these cases, and it's just simply the truth. My honest advice is, if you are a university administrator, especially if you are in a politically divisive position, you need to be aware that someone very likely is going to be checking for plagiarism in your past work, and the smart thing to do would be to perform your own analysis now, get ahead of it, and deal with any issues before that happens. And for schools, I would encourage you to have a policy for dealing with these types of issues. What happens when it's not another academic going through formal channels to present a plagiarism allegation? What happens when it is a newspaper or when it is a member of the public? What do you do, and how do you ensure that you can handle this fairly, quickly, and transparently to ensure that basically everyone is protected, as is academic and research integrity? It is not a small task. I do not have all the answers, but I know that universities and schools need to come up with those answers very quick. Thank you very much for watching this video all the way to the end. I greatly appreciate it. Please, once again, do like and subscribe. I'm going to try to remember to say that, because I do not remember to say that. Also, once again, check out my website, plagiarismtoday.com, and my consulting firm, Copybyte.com, COPYBYTE. Until next time, this is Jonathan Bailey, signing off.